Every time I see that, I think of Wayne's World. Do you remember that?
What's that?
When when they like get they get the sponsor, and so their show moves from the basement to like a studio, and they count them down,
Oh yeah,
and then the two and the one are silent, and they they have a problem over why they're silent. They're like, why don't you say two or one?
yeah,
It's like, we just
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Three. Anyways,
Hello,
okay, we're live.
we're golden. We're live.
This is the Friendship News Hour, presented to you by Bummer Dude Media. Today is April the 12th, 2023. My name is Frank. His name is Alex. You look like a
Sexy.
middle aged divorced man. Is there something you want to tell us?
Yeah, I'm living out of a hotel room. Frank, Sarah kicked me out. Dark
Yikes.
times. Dark times.
Yikes.
No, I am on the road today in beautiful Anaheim, California, for the trade show NAM. Out here for the week for work and living out of a hotel room. It's fun.
Welcome to your first hotel recording.
Yeah, for real. It actually is.
Yeah.
It actually is. This is you do this on the regular. You're a veteran.
On the reg, I think we posted a question to our Facebook viewers. Do calories count if you eat them in the airport? It's an interesting question. Do you uh, do you go hog wild in the airport?
Well, so I always have like an allotment. I think I have like up to $30 to use, like for meals at when I'm traveling. Usually, just in general, I have like a $30 head kind of a thing. But
It's like your per diem.
yeah, per diem, that's the word. But I mean, so yesterday when I was traveling, left out at like I got to the airport at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. I went to the Wolfgang Puck Express because you got to. It's classy. Got myself a nice breakfast sandwich. And that with a coffee came out to like $30. So I try to treat myself a
Jeez.
little bit, not like a McDonald's kind of a thing.
Yeah,
But
I've always been like enamored with the attitude of being in an airport. I don't know if it's the stress or the fact that you're flying in a tube 30,000 feet over the air that could kill you at any instant. That you want to just drink alcohol. What is it about airports and alcohol? They just go together. It's like, for me, it's almost non-negotiable during
really,
reasonable hours, right? Like, I'm not
yeah.
going to fly at 9 a.m. for a business trip and have a dirty martini, right? But if I'm flying on vacation and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, I will consume any amount of alcohol before I get on the flight and without any hesitation whatsoever.
But that's more to ease nerves,
I think it's more because I'm an alcoholic.
right? We're getting to the root of the problem here.
I
This is
don't,
good.
I don't get nervous flying.
No, okay, okay.
No, I get nervous not drinking.
Really? Yeah. See,
No,
I'm not.
that's a joke. I know I'm not an alcoholic. I don't need to drink alcohol. Um, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's just if I'm in a bar or if I'm in an airport and I have 30 minutes to spare, I will have a shot of Jack Daniels. And I don't drink Jack Daniels, and I wouldn't
Oh,
buy that in
that sounds
any other
so
instance.
gross. Yes.
Maybe
I'm
not
I'm
Jack Daniels. Maybe some
I'm
Woodford or
different.
something.
If I'm going, if like with the boys, if I'm doing a dude's trip, bachelor party, whatever, fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's start the party early. But like by myself, I I never really do, man. I don't know why, but I take edibles. So like I popped a 25 milligrammer yesterday when I left, just to kind of
Yikes.
try to sleep on airplanes. But I can't sleep in public, Frank. It's something the way I'm wired, or I don't know what it is, but like I just can't ever get comfortable enough on a bus, on a plane, whatever, to like let go.
Planes are not comfy.
Yeah. But no, dude, I have no anxiety. I always have this thing in my head lifting off. Like, well, if I'm gonna die, like as soon as you lift off, it's like I'm pretty much high enough to die. Like, so at this point, just gotta let go and let God.
You've already made the decision. You're up there
Yeah.
at your own peril. We just started a show called Yellow Jackets.
Never heard of.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. I
I
can't
got an
believe I have
application for
not
you
heard
too.
of this show before.
What
Um,
what service is it through?
it's a Showtime show, but if you're a Paramount subscriber, you can watch it.
Oh fuck.
Um, you might be. You
Well,
might
that's
be.
what you're for, Frank.
Yeah, there you
Give
go.
me all my logins.
Yeah. It started out with you, by the way. I used your Netflix account for a solid 6 years without paying for anything.
Good. Good.
And now I've repaid you tenfold.
It's true.
But yeah, man, the show is crazy, but it revolves around a plane crash.
Mm.
And they show it so vividly. And it's like, fuck, dude, yeah. That's
Like
it.
Lost
Like
style.
it's like Stranger Things meets Lord of the Flies
Hmm.
meets I don't know. Yeah, we'll leave it there. It's
Okay.
wild, dude. It's
Interesting.
wild. Wild,
Okay.
wild, wild craziness. Um but yeah, you had me thinking about that. Because next time I get on a plane, that's all I'll think of.
What makes me nervous, bro, is not the taking off because at that point I've kind of let go. It's landing. I
Yeah,
hate
landing
when
is
planes
terrible.
land, bro, because I'm like, if something's gonna go wrong, I feel like it's on the landing, not the takeoff. Like a gear will fuck up, or like if dude, if one of those wheels or something go down, like you're coming in so hot, that's a crash instantly. Like I
Hmm.
feel it doesn't happen, but that's always when I get nervous and tense up. Is like right as we're about to come down.
I feel like I hear more stories of planes like crash landing in an airport, like like going off of the runway,
Yeah.
more than I hear about a plane being downed like
True.
over the ocean or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you ever see the Malaysian Airlines Netflix documentary?
Rager was talking to me about it when he was on.
Dude, watch it so we could talk about it.
Oh, I mean, he kind of filled me in on a lot of it. Like
Did he?
he's convinced America is involved or at least knows what happened.
Dude, at the very least, they know everything that happened. At the worst, they're responsible.
Mm. That wouldn't
Not
surprise me.
there. We us Americans. Yes, we
What
know.
what would we have wanted? Like, were there people on board we just wanted to take out?
Hmm.
What's the conspiracy there? Like, how would that benefit America?
If you watch the documentary, the only thing that you can take away from whoever was on board and who had an interest in that was Russia.
Okay.
So you follow the breadcrumbs, and it kind of leads you very vaguely to Russia.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know if the Americans had an interest in anybody in that flight, but at the very end of the documentary, somebody's on there talking, and they're like saying like you have all of these countries that have like advanced military presences. You have the Americans who were flying two surveillance planes that night in the area. Um, and you're going to tell me nobody knows?
Yeah. No way. No way.
There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think America at the very like I said, very least America is holding back a secret.
Okay.
Um, but that's just like
We like to do that, Frank.
we do, we do, we love to do that shit. Um, there are speaking of secrets. Did you hear about the? I feel like this is not getting a lot of coverage. The leak that happened over the weekend.
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
What about?
Okay. This shit's crazy. So over the weekend, we find out that there were at least 50 documents that were marked either top secret or secret that were leaked and being circulated all around the internet. And they have to do with our involvement in Ukraine. So
Mm.
they originate from within the US military and intelligence agencies, and they include details about the strength of Ukraine forces, air defenses, military equipment, classified information about arms and support that the United States has provided to Ukraine. Um, they also have copies of like the daily intelligence reports, like the reports that the president fucking gets when he sits around with the chiefs of staff, joint chiefs of staff. Gets
Right.
yeah. So those were leaked. There was Israel was implicated, South Korea was implicated, and we don't know who did it. And it's just fucking wild. Like, how does that get leaked? And like, I guess I don't really care. I mean, like, this is so above our head, right? But I think what really what the complications with this obviously is that we have somebody inside of Ukraine, or excuse me, inside of Russia, that's feeding us this information, and then we're disseminating this information, giving it to Ukraine so they can fight this war. So somebody's implicated within Russia at the highest ranks of the Russian government, and now that person's probably outed and will probably
What
be
if
killed.
what if it's Snowden trying to get back to America? So he's like reversing reversing it.
Yeah, good. I hope he gets back.
Dude, we have to talk about everything going on over there though, because we haven't really had a chance because we had Rager on a couple weeks ago, then we had the man Mitch last week talking about all kinds of cool plant medicine, but we have not really got to talk about BRICS and all this like money stuff going on, this new currency that they're like. I'm very very scared about all of this, Frank.
Yeah, and you might be right because it's the end of America's global dominance. It's that
Yeah.
what makes us such a big player. The reason we're a global superpower or the preeminent global superpower is because everybody uses our currency. The United States dollar is backed by the United States dollar. And the fact that everybody uses it. I had an economics professor when I was in my undergrad, and um, he was like, you could be dropped in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, and you could give somebody a dollar bill, and they would say, "Is good." That was his one joke. Is good. Because the dollar's accepted everywhere. And now it's being dropped like a freaking hot potato. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's not even just like China and Russia. Like I know those are the big bads, but like Brazil's getting involved. There's a bunch of like Pan-American countries, like Costa Rica, and a bunch of countries around there that are involved now. I think Southern Africa is involved. Like that, every time I look, the list keeps growing. I heard even Germany might be flirting with
Yes.
them about doing this. Like that
Yes.
is a close ally of ours, and that would pretty much destroy the European Union, from what I'm understanding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the
Yeah,
reason it would destroy the European Union is because Britain's already out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Britain and Germany were really like the only two major contributors. Everybody else was taking.
Right.
Germany and Great Britain were contributing. Great Britain's out. Germany leaves. Then, yeah, what does that leave you? Well, chaos is what it leaves you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm hearing stories all the time, and you never know what to believe because this comes from this side, this comes from that side, and you never know. But more and more, there's stories coming out that peace was wanted by both Ukraine and Russia. And there was one entity that didn't make that happen. That was the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know I'm not hearing anything. Nobody's reporting in any depth, or at least maybe I'm just not looking correctly. But what the fuck is our diplomacy like? What are our relations like with our enemies? But I heard a bunch about it when the previous administration was here.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be okay. He fucking shook Kim Jong-un's hand. You know what I mean? Like don't you feel like that's where we need to be?
Yeah, I totally agree. But now we have China and Russia fostering, like they're repairing the relationships in the Middle East that haven't been good for years and years and years and years, and now they're somehow lining up. It's like when I look at this, man, and I see all these countries coming together, forming their own currency. The only thing I get to my head is those are the countries that want, like, if we went to war, would probably be allied most likely with these guys, and they'd have their own currency, so they're not relying on the dollar. We can't do anything to shut down anything that they'd want to do during wartime.
It looks like
just
they're
complete independence.
setting up kind of like a chess move, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
so that they have leverage. So that when China encircles Taiwan and they do a whole bunch of war games, and they're doing war exercises, literally in Taiwan in a sovereign nation, and they're saying, okay, what the fuck are you gonna do about it? Because where's your leverage now? You can't do anything. So we're going to take what we want. If you want to use force against us, well, then it's game on. And we're going to do everything we can to crush you. But there's nothing else that you can do other than to bring force, because now we've taken away your only other high leverage position. And that is the currency that everybody else was using, and now they're not.
Right.
This was forecasted. I know a lot of people don't fucking like to hear it. This was forecasted months and months and months ago. I heard it first on Tucker Carlson. And he was like, this is the end of the US dollar. You guys understand that the building blocks here are just going to go do. And this is when we started putting heavy sanctions on Russia, because that was the only way that we could interfere with Russia, is through sanctions. And the only reason we could do that is because the globe decided that long time ago, this is like World War II era, that the globe was going to use the US dollar as a global currency so that it could be everybody can exchange with everybody and there's an exchange rate. And now all these countries are like, well, we see what they're doing with Russia, and maybe we don't like what Russia's doing, but if they have that power with Russia, they have that power over all of us. And I don't like that. I don't like having that held over my head. And so I'm going to do what's best for my people, and I'm going to move the fuck away because it doesn't look like what's going on in America is very stable right now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we did that with Russia. It worked for like 2 weeks. McDonald's and Starbucks left Russia. Good for you. Sorry, you can't have your Frappuccino anymore. And then all of a sudden, the ruble, whatever the fuck they use, it was like at zero. They halted trading on it, and then after a little while, it just skyrocketed. And that's when people were like, "Oh, we are powerless against this. We have nothing to do other than to get involved overtly, indirectly with Ukraine." And now it's all shit. So, yeah, man.
And I saw Finland just join NATO, so now they have Russia lost more land.
That's awesome.
They have more land that butts up against NATO now, and it's like Ukraine would be that last straw.
I think in any situation, small or big, but take a small situation, take a tiff with your wife, right? You could sit there and you could have the truth on your side. And you can know without a shadow of a doubt, truth is on your side. Mm-hmm. And then you just shove that truth down your wife's throat. And you're like, fucking eat this truth. Eat it. Digest it, swallow it. You need this truth. And your wife's like, dude,
is
fuck
truth
you.
A metaphor here?
No, listen. I can't help what your imagination does with this, you sick bastard.
Just giving me good imagery here, Frank. Go ahead. And
then, what is your wife gonna do? She's gonna turn away. Fuck you, dude. I don't want anything you're trying to sell me right now. This is not. I don't care what you have to say. I don't care that what you're saying is true. It doesn't matter. Your approach here is all wrong. I don't want to listen to anything you have to say. And now you guys are at odds because you're like, well, this woman. It's probably not the adjective you're using in the moment. This woman is not listening to the truth. What's wrong with her? And then she's like, this guy's an asshole. I don't care what he has to say, but he's a dick about it. Right? Instead of going, asking your wife what the problem is, hearing her, understanding her, listening to her, and validating that she has some sort of issue with this, that, and the other, and that she has every right to feel this way about this, that, and the other. And then, and only then, will she be receptive to the truth, because then she feels understood.
But we've heard from Russia what their problem is that they don't want more NATO up on their borders. But like, that's not. I don't know. I don't want to say logical, but like at a point, like Russia's borders like start, and like obviously NATO is not going to be into Russia and all this other shit. So like, to me, the fact that they're so worried about that shows malintent, which is why I think like we would be worried or push back in that argument. But
okay, but when you're talking, okay, so take that example that I just talked about, and now scale that to global geopolitics. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't control somebody's intent. If somebody like Putin is going to act the way that they're going to act, you have no control over that. If they want to do it, they're going to do it, right? And there might be repercussions for that, but obviously that hasn't mattered to Russia. So you have two options. One, diplomacy, right? Diplomacy is give and take. That's I listen to you, you listen to me, I listen to you, you listen to me. Months of talks, months of negotiations. That's how we got out of the Cold War. Through diplomacy, we opened the door and started talking so that a nuclear holocaust did not occur. That's option one. Option two is power and leverage. And if you go down that route and you don't navigate out of that and you continue on that road, then the other party has no other option than to reciprocate with power and leverage of their own. And that is how you get to conflict. It's because people there's no room for diplomacy. For whatever reason, we won't let down our guard. Russia obviously is so far entrenched in what they're doing that they're not going to let down their guard. And so it's a stalemate. And who's going to blink first? Well, I'm sorry, but if we really are going to be the global police and the defender of democracy across the globe, and that's what we're gonna that's the message that we're gonna send, and that's why we're so involved with Ukraine. Diplomacy has to occur. Negotiations have to occur. Peace has to occur, and we have to get over this thing that, like, oh well, Putin this and their malintent this. That. Listen, I don't. You can't be so like naive when you're talking about such big things. You have to listen to these people and what their concerns are and hear them at least.
Do you think diplomacy was present under the previous administration, and that's just not something that is as valued or like that they're even worried about at this point? Or I mean, do you think like if Trump gets reelected in 2024, that like there is a band-aid or some kind of diplomacy fix, something to like ease these tensions, or are we starting to get to a point where we're too far?
That's a good question. I think if you talk to like a big MAGA Republican, they're going to tell you that Trump was the best negotiator we've ever had in the White House, this, that, and the other. That's probably overplayed, but I think it's hard to overstate just how effective of a global communicator the Trump administration was. These peace accords that are happening between China and the Middle East right now were happening under Trump. The Abrahamic Accords, they brought Israel and Saudi Arabia together. It hadn't happened in multiple decades. He was talking with Russia. Was he getting anywhere? I don't know, but they were talking. They had an open line of communication. They were talking.
With North
Korea, Saudi Arabia. I mean, look, you may not like the way that he went about his business, but you can't argue with the fact that people were willing to talk. And that is such an important key aspect of it. Whether it's too far gone, man, I don't know. Who the hell's to say? I doubt that there's much that can be done from the. I think the only thing that really that could be done is if the United States opened up the avenue for negotiations.
But would that be you guys can take Ukraine? Like
no. Well, there would have to be concession, right? But it couldn't be, the negotiation couldn't be the United States brokering peace. I mean, I guess it could, but it can't. I mean, it can't. It's obviously one-sided. So it would have to be a third party. It'd have to be somebody that knows both sides. I think Emmanuel Macron was probably a solid candidate for that until they decided to invade Ukraine. But yeah, I mean, just the posture, just shifting the posture, saying, hey, we've been giving money to Ukraine in support of their efforts there. They have gained almost no ground. We're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars over there. It's not working out. So we're going to shift our posture here. We think peace is the best option. And if America diverts to that route and begins negotiations and diplomacy opens up again in a big, big way, there's no telling what you can do. But it's certain that if you continue down the road that we're going down now, conflict is inevitable. And it has to be understood. Conflict is inevitable. And it may not manifest itself in like a hot war, but it's going to manifest itself in some way. And I saw a tweet today from Jesse Kelly, because there was another explosion in another manufacturing plant in America. This time, I think it was in Illinois. Big, giant fire. I mean, the Hershey chocolate factory blew up a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
You didn't see that? The chocolate factory in Hershey, Pennsylvania? Dude, it was crazy. It was like a bomb went off in this factory. Just boom, just blew up in the middle of downtown Hershey, Pennsylvania. There was one.
I would think that they would want us to get fatter.
Well, right. Right. But he made the point. He goes, I don't know if this is some sort of sabotage from another country, or if this is just complete ineptness from American leaders and manufacturers and everybody all the way down. Whatever it is, it's not good. And I agree that it's not good. And so either sabotage, if you want to think about it that way, or we're just completely dissolving under our own infrastructure. Either way, we're not fit for conflict. And so,
yeah, dude, we're not. And it's funny, like the slogan "Make America Great Again" got so much like shit just because of the guy behind it, really, and a lot of outlets and whatnot. But like, we do like that. We're sending all this money overseas and all getting involved in all these like international affairs, and it's like we have trains that are crashing and poisoning huge swaths of Ohio and different states. Like I keep seeing more and more about train derailments and crashes, and now we're factories blowing up. It's like we, like you're saying, we need to focus at home. We need to make America great again, like within our borders before we start fucking off, internationally everywhere and like get ourselves into a problem to where oh shit we're in a war now. Fuck, we have 2 railroads down right now that don't work, or fuck, our factories can't produce what we need to make guns or jeeps to get Humvees and all this. It's like we need to make sure that shit is solid as a fucking rock and not just rely on our nuclear arsenal before we start pushing all these buttons.
Yeah, man. Agreed. 100% agreed. And I like to think that I pay attention to things. I can't see in any way at all that our current leadership from a federal level is competent in the least. Nothing has shown me that. Like literally nothing.
On it. They're not reporting on that at all, Frank. I know it's not news that these outlets slant, but like if this was Trump right now getting us into all this shit and all like he would be getting drugged through the fucking mud, and you hear very little like doubt in this administration or very much like push.
I don't know. Do you remember that I think it was that shooting that happened in Tennessee, and they were asking the first time they had the chance to ask Biden about it. He said, "I'm only down here because I heard they had ice cream in the freezer." It was literally his response.
What?
And he was making a joke, but it's like,
not a good joke.
Like where do we how big do our blinders have to be to where we're like, yeah, this is okay, we're good, things are fine as long as Trump's not there, this is good. I don't know, man. It's just brutal. It's just so brutal to watch because you're watching real time and you feel helpless. You feel like you can't do anything. I feel like I'm watching this great country that I just by pure luck and happenstance happen to be born into just crumble just right before my eyes. Just completely fall. It really sucks, man. It really sucks. You know what else sucks? Speaking about, excuse me. I think we started talking this conversation about that leak that happened.
Oh yeah,
in the White House.
Derailed us.
So the United States is saying they're downplaying it. Obviously, nothing to see here. That's a posture you would take. A Wall Street Journal reporter got detained in Russia last week. You heard about this?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I think it's interesting because this guy gets detained and Russia detains him on grounds of espionage, right? He's a spy. That's what they're saying. They use that a lot to detain people. They'll just slap espionage on it and say, this is why we're detaining him. We found out he's a spy, this, that, and the other. The United States and the Wall Street Journal, obviously, are denying it vehemently. However, you wouldn't say it was true if it was true. Would you?
Yeah. No.
Like, fuckers, you got us. You got us. Give him back. Like what what are you going to say? No, he's not a spy. He's not a spy. Give him back. He's not a spy. I'm not saying he is. I don't know anything about this guy. I'm just saying, what if he is? Then what do you do?
Possible, yeah.
Then what do you do? Apparently, they have a big haul that they're trying to give to Russia for this guy and for Paul Whelan. Paul Whelan is the guy that we forgot about in Russia when we brought back Brittany Griner. But he, I guess it's commonplace to allow for the consulate of your country, so the U.S. embassy in Russia, to make a visit to somebody who's detained like this, and they haven't been able to. But they're not budging Russia, and so it looks like this guy is going to stay here for a little while longer. I don't know many details about the case. I thought it was worth pointing out. And like we'll never know. I mean, maybe down the road we'll know, but we'll never know. This guy very well might be a spy, and he got caught, and now he's fucked. Anyways. Oh, real quick. Sorry, one more thing on that leak. This is from Sagar and Jetty, from one of the hosts of Breaking Points. He read through the leaked documents, and these were his findings. Number one, Russia, U.S., and Ukraine are all lying about how the war is going, including casualty figures, ammo shortages, war progress, etc. The situation for Ukraine is a lot more dire than Ukraine or the Pentagon lets on. Two, the extent to which the U.S. is basically running all operations for Ukraine cannot be understated, including battle damage assessments, ammo deliverables, logistics, etc. So it's a proxy war. The U.S. is actively cooking up plots to force South Korea and Israel to violate their own internal policy and provide Ukraine with lethal weapons. This includes spying on both countries and using that info to pressure them. The penetration that the U.S. has into the highest levels of government in the allied countries like South Korea and Hungary is astonishing. Intel assessments include direct quotes from high-level officials during sensitive deliberations. That's not like a surprise, but it is surprising to hear that because it's official, right? This stuff's supposed to be secret, and it's not. So anyway, that is the information on that. Let's switch gears for a second.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're addicted to weed?
Ask myself.
Good question, right?
Far too often. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a good question because for a long time, the theory was that weed is not. You can't get addicted to weed, right? And the New York Times has an article about it. Smoking weed has always been a social activity for Julian. He first tried cannabis in high school, and as an adult, he would smoke a couple times a month with friends. But things changed after he moved to a new city where he didn't know anyone. Julian, who asked to not use his last name when talking about a sensitive medical condition, didn't have much of a social life, so he started smoking by himself to pass the time. Weed became my friend, he said. I would get off work and I would smoke because I was bored. Soon, Julian's life began to revolve around cannabis. Smoking never interfered with his work, but it stopped him from doing just about everything else. Typically, when you move to a new city, you establish new relationships, and I was doing none of that. He said, I was living almost like a recluse. I have an identical story to Mr. Julian. When I moved from Ohio to San Jose, I started a new job. I was working remote in a new city where I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any coworkers. For the first time in my life, I had no means to organically make friends. I had to actually go and do that. And then I also figured out that San Jose had legal marijuana dispensaries. And so I decided to check that out. And just like Julian, weed became my friend, man. It sucked. I had no friends. I had nothing. I had no companionship. I was just getting high all the time. But like him, it never interfered with my work. I never got high in the middle of the day. I never smoked weed during work hours between midnight or so and 5 p.m. the next day. I was just doing my regular thing, and then I would get off work, and then I would just go get high by myself, take a nice long 2-hour walk in my neighborhood alone. And it was awful. It was terrible. So I'll read on. It was only through talking to a friend that Julian realized he might have a problem. He had thought it was impossible to become addicted to weed, but then he looked up the definition of cannabis use disorder, and he realized he met almost all of the criteria. Despite the common misconception, people can become addicted to cannabis, just as they can with other drugs, like alcohol and cocaine. As more states either decriminalize or legalize cannabis, more people are using it than ever before. According to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health in 2021, approximately 19% of Americans 12 and older used cannabis, and nearly 6% of teens and adults qualified as having cannabis use disorder, the clinical name for addiction. Quote, most people who use cannabis do not have problems related to their use and are not going to develop cannabis use disorder, said Dr. Ayana Jordan, an associate professor of psychiatry at NYU. But just because cannabis is being legalized, and I actually think it should be legalized, it doesn't mean that there is not any harm associated. I think we've had a similar discussion on the show before. So I think it's interesting to bring this up because, again, before, when there was a push to get marijuana legalized, it was the common misconception that you could get addicted and then it would lead to heroin and all kinds of other bad drugs.
Yeah.
But now, through years of data plus personal experience, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, it is absolutely something you can get addicted to.
Yeah, the thing you always hear about is it's a mental addiction more than like a physical one, and I think I agree with that because like if you're a crack addict or a meth addict and you go off of that, like you physically your body is like what the fuck is going on? It's in shock, and like that addiction, like that whatever it's used to, that baseline isn't there anymore, and it freaks out. That doesn't happen with weed. Like if you stop smoking weed, it's just like whatever. Most of the time, I would say. But the mental addiction for sure. Like I mean, man, I can't agree with that more. I would say a physical addiction is much more dangerous, but that doesn't mean you should take the mental one lightly. But I mean, dude, I say this as a very habitual weed smoker. Like I feel personally attacked by you even bringing this up. To be honest with you. But no, dude, I mean, I use weed. I'll be the first person to say I use weed every day, probably multiple times a day, and it's dude, I don't know. It's like my therapy or something, man. Like people take all these drugs, antidepressants, whatever, to balance their brain chemistry and all this other shit, and I just don't fuck with that. Like I don't trust it. I've seen that go really bad for people in my life, and I've seen it go well as well. I'm not trying to discredit it, but I just don't think it's for me. So like weed has always been like a natural option in my head to face that or to fight anxiety or depression or anything like that. And it works for me. Like I have kind of self-diagnosed that, I guess. But I think that there's wonderful benefits of it. There's definite drawbacks, especially depending on the kind of strain you're smoking. You know, if you're smoking really strains that are going to just make you lazy and do nothing, like that's not productive. That's not really helpful unless you're really just trying to focus on like pain management or something. But you give me a good sativa, man, in the beginning of the day or early morning joint, you know, a little bit of coffee, like I'm golden for the day. I'm in a great mood. I'm cranking shit out. But dude, there's days I'm not ashamed to admit it. If I don't smoke, I'm an asshole, bro. I'm a dickhead. You ask Sarah, man. Like it's I don't want to say it's like a problem, but like it is definitely something that I've realized that like it affects me, and I think that's like a part of that mental addiction. Because I'm not like shaking, I'm not aching and like sweating and like that is not present ever in me. But there is a change in personality for sure.
Yeah, I mean, having done it, I would say that giving up marijuana is not terribly difficult. I would say if you drink coffee every day, it would be way harder to give up coffee every day than it would be than if you used marijuana every day. I think I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But again, just the idea of addiction, I think, is not great, right? You said like, maybe it's not a problem. Like, yeah, of course it's not a problem. It's not, it's not causing failure of your work or your duties as a parent or a husband, right? Like, it's just your attitude's a little bit off, and if you consume this substance, your attitude changes a little bit.
I think it's like an anxiety thing in my specific condition.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not like, oh my God, what's going on? Like I don't have severe, but like it just eases me. It just puts me at ease. I don't like I don't want to say I have a temper, but like I'm not a patient person. And the influence of that makes me more, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm I'm kind of torn on all this because I on one hand, again, I agree that the legalization of weed is on the whole a good thing. I still believe that.
Not for the youth, though.
Definitely not for the youth, but it never was anyways.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, for consenting adults, yes, I think it's good that it's legalized. It's good that it's not a crime. Put it that way. Um, but again, like I'm reading this, and there's obvious signs of addiction, and you could paint it with a pretty color, but at the end of the day, it's still an addiction. It's still something that,
Yeah.
and you're addicted to a substance that alters your mind. Putting it in that perspective, it really turns me off to it, and it really gives me pause. I'm like, ah, fuck. Like, do I rethink this completely?
Then
Because
how
when
do you
I'm
approach? Not to cut you off. I'm sorry. Uh, finish
no,
your
go
thought.
ahead,
I
go
don't
ahead,
mean
go
to
ahead.
push.
What was your question?
How do you approach something like drinking though? Because I mean, what do you classify as like a
Eesh, yeah.
alcoholic problem? You know, like
Oh,
at what
yeah.
point is that an addiction?
I drink every day,
Yeah,
every
but
day,
like it
and I'm not
affects
getting
you.
hammered every day. I have a
Right,
glass of
right.
wine, or last night I had a small glass of whiskey,
Mhm.
but it's like every day, and that's a problem. But it's so easy to be to use alcohol as a crutch because it's such a familiar drug.
Right.
Also, I think alcohol has a a less severe or less heavy effect on you, on your brain. Whereas
In small
we,
doses.
yeah, correct. Like even if you get hammered, right? Like you're just a really loose asshole of yourself, shell of yourself. With weed, it like alters your brain, your thinking, and everything. Your whole. I'm not saying we alcohol. It just affects you differently. I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
and you do it socially. Whereas like you you do weed socially, but also that could have an effect on how you act socially. And alcohol is like the
True.
quintessential icebreaker of a drug, right?
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, how do you approach alcohol? The same exact way, I think. The same exact way. They're both like almost have like I don't say zero, but like very little beneficial qualities in the long run. I think alcohol more so is it literally kills your brain cells. Like it deteriorates you from the inside out with regular usage. I don't know that weed does that. Maybe it does. I don't know. But
But I mean,
alcohol
yeah, but it's
absolutely
bad for
does.
your lungs. Like, yeah, I
And
think
and
alcohol is worse for your body, but
there
long
was
term.
just
But weed's bad too.
it is. Yeah, I mean none of it's great. There was just a study that came out, and I'm only speaking on like the title of it. I haven't even read it, but it basically was like, hey, remember all those old studies that we had about wine that said that like a glass a day is good for your heart? Yeah, that was all horseshit. Like it's all
Really?
bullshit. Yeah,
Wow.
like none of it's good for you. It's all detrimental. Everything in
Yeah.
moderation, but like heavy usage of alcohol is just as bad as any other heavy usage of any other drug. Um, so yeah, man, I don't know. Like my mind is changing on this, and I want to like be very cautious that I don't turn into like this get off my lawn old man, go get a haircut hippie, that kind of guy. I don't want to be that guy, and I want to have an open mind about it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, this isn't. There's a lot of stuff coming. That's we were talking about last week. The cognitive dissonance. I'm on a path, and there's a lot of information that's coming trying to knock me off that path. Saying, hey, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're wrong. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. you know, and I don't know. It just it's with weed. It's just continually to hit me at all angles that this might need to be rethought a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. No, it crosses my mind here and there too, and my wife is not a big fan of like the smell of it. So like that is always
Mm,
like a. But I'm trying to think of ways to adapt going forward. Maybe more edible focused, and more like a microdose. Like
mm-hmm.
if I could take, 5 milligram edible in the morning and still not, still see like my normal mellow effects and everything like that. Like maybe that's better than smoking a bowl twice a day or whatever. But man, it's tough. It's tough. It's hard to like take a look at yourself, especially with like things that you've done for so long or become so reliant on, and to like something that's been like in a positive focus in your mind for so long, and like start to question that and
Yeah.
push back on that. And that's like natural, I think, just like as people get older, have families, become like real adults. But man, imagine a day that I'm not going to be a little high. That's I'm like, I sound like a drug addict saying it, I guess, but ugh.
Yeah. Um, and like no judgment. If that's what you do and you're handling your business, by all means, Do what you got to do. But if you're out there and you feel like this is a detriment to you, it just might be. Actually, I saw a billboard, right, is one right by my house, where it was like, have anxiety, marijuana might have the opposite effect. And it's like an organization, like a nonprofit organization that's trying to get people off of marijuana for anxiety. It's very interesting.
I think it affects everyone differently. Because yes, there's definitely people I know that freak the fuck out when they
Right.
smoke, bro.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. It's been a lot of weed talk for the last 2 weeks, or drug talk. Okay, there is an interesting story out of Texas. There's all kinds of interesting stories out of Texas. One of them involves a gentleman by the name of Daniel Perry. Do you know who this guy is?
Unfamiliar.
Well, first of all, hold on. Let me pay this off really quick. The story that we talked about a couple weeks ago about that guy that posted a meme about voting via text for Hillary Clinton in 2016, he got persecuted and just got convicted of, I don't know what the fuck he got convicted for. Let's see, hold on.
Like election interference? Wasn't that what they were trying
Maybe
to
it was election interference. Douglas Mackey, convicted by a Brooklyn jury of, you would think that's like the first thing in an article.
Right, right.
I don't even know this article is going to mention it. But anyway, he put a meme up of Hillary. It was like skip the line, vote for Hillary by texting this number. And I think we rightly said that if that is the way that you chose to vote, then your vote shouldn't count anyways. That should be the end of the story. This is an article on, here we go, Politico. Let's see what Politico has to say.
You have. I do want to credit you because you have a great skill of still presenting information while reading. I've noticed it through the years. It's it's great. I'm like, if I'm trying to talk, I need to, or like read, I need to like focus on what I'm reading with my slow brain. But you're still able to like carry on conversation, and I see your eyes just going a minute a mile.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is from the Department of Justice themselves. Douglas Mackey, also known as Ricky Vaughn, was convicted today by a federal jury of Brooklyn of the charge of conspiracy against rights, stemming from his scheme to deprive individuals of their constitutional right to vote. The verdict followed a 1-week trial before the United States District Judge Ann M. Donnelly. When sentenced, Mackey faces a maximum of 10 years in prison. That shit is wild.
Wow.
That shit is wild. Tell me, give me the case. I'll listen. Tell me why this is not politically motivated. And I'll listen. Tell me why it isn't, and I will listen. And if you can give me a convincing argument, I'm willing to change my mind. I'm open to it. But the way I see this right here, this is political persecution.
Yeah? Yeah, dude, I love to play devil's advocate, but I got nothing for that.
I can't think of anything, man. It fucking blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's scary. It was a meme.
I just can't help but think that if it was like role reversal, you would hear nothing of it ever. That person would be applauded.
Yeah, right. Way to take votes away from Trump. Way to do it.
Yeah.
Applause. Anyways, there's another interesting case, and this is in Texas. Daniel Perry was convicted of, I believe, murder. Yeah, convicted of murder for the killing of a man in July of 2020. This was during the wave of BLM protests across the country. Perry, an Army sergeant who was working as an Uber driver, drove up to some protesters, according to police. Amid a confrontation with the group, he opened fire on Garrett Foster, a 28-year-old Air Force veteran who was openly carrying an AK-47 rifle, which is legal in Texas. Mr. Perry told police he believed the rifle was aimed at him. His lawyers argued that the killing was in self-defense. A jury last week convicted Mr. Perry of murder after seeing evidence that includes social media and text messages Perry wrote suggesting violence against protesters, according to local media. The messages included, quote, "I might have to kill a few people on my way to work. They are rioting outside my apartment complex." And another one saying, quote, "I might go to Dallas to shoot looters." It's not a good look.
Not a good look.
It's not a good look. So, putting those messages aside, right? Here's what the evidence showed. The evidence showed that he was driving as an Uber driver, came up, some protesters were illegally blockading a street. Okay. He came up, there was a guy holding an AK-47. This guy, Daniel Perry, also had a gun in his car. The guy holding the AK-47 had been approached by police earlier, and they said, "You can wear that firearm, and nobody can stop you from wearing that firearm. But I will tell you that if anybody knows what they're doing with a firearm, and they see the way that you're holding it and the way you're using it and the way you're behaving with it, they will take it as an offense, and they will defend themselves. So be careful with how you use this weapon."
Which is also legal in Texas, right? It's a standard ground state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. So, the story goes that this guy was driving through this crowd. This crowd swarmed on his car. They surrounded him. He began to get really anxious and nervous. And he saw this guy with an AK-47, and he saw the way he was handling it, and he feared for his life, and he opened fire. Now, I think the only reason that he got convicted was because of the messages that he put out. He said he might have to kill somebody, and then later that day he did. That is not great. Okay. No, my question is that enough to convict somebody? Is that enough to prove intent? Or in that situation, is that enough to where you fear for your life and you are justified in standing your ground regardless of the messages that you sent that day? And can you prove that this guy went out there to do what he did?
Dude, as an attorney, you got to be able to make the offense that shows premeditation. Like it was in your mind thinking, I'm going to have to kill somebody today.
Do you think it did?
Dude, I could see how that argument could be made. Yeah, I mean, if you're going into that hostile environment thinking, I'm going to maybe have to kill somebody right now. Like your guard is up, your senses are heightened, and you're more sensitive to pulling that trigger quicker, I would think. Like, I don't understand as an Uber driver, if all this shit's going on, fucking don't drive there. You know, especially if you're sending messages like this. That, to me, that shows like a little bit of he knew it was a very realistic thing and still said, like, fuck it, I'm going to go make $40 driving for Uber today. You know? Is that worth it?
I agree. This could have been avoided. I think just like that Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
You know, could you make the argument, and they did, that he was acting in self-defense? Absolutely. Did he go down there because there was precedent for vandalism in buildings and that he was going to protect somebody's building from vandalism? Yes. But he put himself in that situation. And the only way to avoid killing somebody is to avoid putting yourself in the situation to kill somebody. Right? Like, yeah, in the normal circumstances, if you go and you're armed with a rifle, you're asking for something. You're putting it out there that you're.
What I would say though is if Rittenhouse got off, in his circumstances, I think are more egregious than what this guy did. Because this guy Rittenhouse went there, kind of confrontationally, in the guise of being defensive, but like in a confrontational manner to do what he was doing. It sounds like this guy was just trying to work, but like had in mind that shit's crazy, I might have to pull a trigger today. So, but to me, Rittenhouse's is more like, I don't want to say evil, but like has more malintent to just the basis of what was going on.
Yeah, but like I think the Kyle Rittenhouse case is pretty like closed, open shut. Like regardless of what you think, like if you look at the facts of what happened, he absolutely acted in self-defense. He was being attacked. Mm-hmm. Is it murder if you have murderous thoughts and then you defend yourself?
Yeah, right.
You
In a
know,
state like Texas, no, I think this guy will get off due to their laws. But
like I'm looking at my window right now and I see a post office truck sitting right outside my house. And if I was in here today and it hypothetically, allegedly said, man, I really want to fucking kill a postal office worker today. And I put it out there and I said, I might have to kill me a postal worker today. And then I walked outside and the postal worker came up to me and had a knife or came up to me and threatened me or said something. And I had my kid on me or something and he threatened me and he wouldn't move out of the way. And he was acting crazy. He was going, if you will, postal. And I said to him, back up or I will shoot you. And he proceeded forward and I shot him. I had it in my head that day that I wanted to kill a postal worker.
Right.
I was presented with the opportunity to kill a postal worker and I did it. But I didn't do it because I wanted to kill him. I did it because I was defending myself. See, like, to me, that seems like self-defense. I seem like a unstable psychopath for putting it out there that I want to kill a postal worker. But when presented with the opportunity, I didn't immediately just go up and shoot him in the head. For the sake of doing that, I waited until I was provoked, and then I acted on that.
Yeah, it's like almost like premeditated murder in the guise of self-defense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, like that's so tough. In
It is
Texas,
tough.
he gets away with it. He gets away with it for sure.
Well, he just might. So he got convicted of murder. But the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, said that as soon as this case hits his desk for a pardon, he will pardon him.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's Texas.
So they're
Yeah.
appealing it. Yeah, man, I don't know. But again, was this politically motivated? If that was a MAGA, we put it in that situation. If there was a Trump rally and this guy gets surrounded his car by a bunch of Riley old Trump supporters and he's like, I'm on your side. And they still didn't listen to him. Does he shoot? Does he pull the trigger?
Yeah, right. Was the guy he killed black? Do you know, or a minority?
He might have been. Let's see if I Garrett Foster. It looks like he was white.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, he was white.
Not a hate crime. That's good.
But then again, also on the other end of that, if you're a protester and you're wearing an AK-47, what are you doing that for?
Right.
What are you doing that for? Yeah, you have every right to do it. No one's saying you can't. But like, what are you doing that for? Why do you got an AK out?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a sticky wicket.
Some would have you believe that if we just outlawed all guns, that none of this would ever happen.
I would like to invite them to visit the southernmost portion of the city of Chicago.
Or
Where
west. Far west.
Where the gun laws are as strict as they could possibly be, and then you let me know how that will work out.
Mm-hmm.
See, okay. So that's my issue with all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, you believe that legislation around guns will work. Do you have an avenue? Do you know what that would take? Do you understand what would have to happen in order for that to occur?
Right.
And if you don't, and you're just screaming at it, we have to do something. Well, thank you for your contribution, but please exit stage left. You bring absolutely no value to this conversation because the fact of the matter is that you can't do anything about gun laws. You can't do anything about it. Do you know how hard it is to change the Constitution? Even if you didn't want to change the Constitution, even if you wanted to get your constituents on board with some sort of what's being called common sense gun laws, even if you were like, you know what, we really don't need assault rifles. You know who's going to be on board with that? Absolutely nobody. Do you want to know why? Because cities aren't safe anymore. So if you're telling this person that you need to give up your weapon in order to ease the minds of the general American people, you're going to be like, well, my mind is not at ease, motherfucker,
Yeah.
because I live in Philadelphia and I'm seeing people getting shot on the corner left and right
Right.
for no
And then
reason.
What do you do in that situation for like police officers? Are they the exception to that rule? Could they still have assault rifles? You know, like
And there you
or
go.
they just
And
totally
there you
ban 'em?
go. Who can and who's sponsored by the state that can hold these weapons? And who's going to use that authority over me? And that's like our last saving grace as a free people is the ability to defend ourselves. Nobody's going to give that up.
I don't.
Yeah, you
disagree.
can blame the NRA. The NRA has nothing to do with this. They're such a small player. It's like ridiculous. It's that argument that is invoked is so dumb. They make contributions of no significance to the political landscape. It's nothing to do with the NRA. It has nothing to do with people's strongholds over the NRA and donations. It has everything to do with politicians and their constituents. And their constituents do not want gun control. They don't want it. Because at the end of the day, all you got is yourself. That's the best way to protect yourself. If you can figure out a better way, if you can invest more in policing, if you can invest more in smart, competent policing, if you can make the general public feel more safe about walking down the street, then you might have a chance. But until we get there, it's the people's right, and they are not going to give it up. So that is where we need to. That is the foundation of the argument, and where it needs to start from.
What about like a social program where everyone gets free jujitsu lessons?
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I have no reason why not.
Technique. Yeah.
I have no reason why not. You want to learn karate? Here you go. Here's a voucher for free.
Dojos across
Absolutely.
the country would be thrilled.
Do it. Do it. Because more people would learn self-control, and a whole heck of a lot of people would be willing to go out and, bring an AK-47 with them because they're too much of a pussy to learn how to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh, baby. Hey, I got one more thing real quick. We were talking show suggestions earlier, and I forgot to mention this, but I started from a recommendation from a friend watching this show on HBO called Search Party. You ever heard of?
Nope.
Somehow I didn't hear about it either. There's like 6 seasons out of it. It's nice because they're like 23-minute episodes, quick digestible. I don't know how to talk. But the main character is Maybe from Arrested Development.
Nice.
So, and it's like a comedy show, but it's like it's just crazy. It's one of those shows where like things just keep snowballing and going nuts and wild and like keep fucking up kind of a thing. But
yeah,
good show, fun show. I highly recommend.
Search Party.
Check her out.
Cool. All right, man. You can find us on Instagram at Friendship News Hour, TikTok at Friendship News Hour, on Twitter at FriendshipNH, and you can send us an email, bummerdude.media@gmail.com, bummerdude.media@gmail.com. Have fun in Anaheim. Sir, say hi to Mickey for me.
I'll see you in a few short days, my friend.